All right, everybody. Hello. Hope you're doing well. I just did this, but I forgot to turn the microphone on, so I'm going to do this again. So that's which is cool because I love telling the story. I mentioned in my greeting video today that this is my favorite lesson of all time to teach the whole 180 days. Normally we'd have together. This is my very favorite story to tell, and so I hope you like it. If this was a movie, man, it'd be such a great movie. It's got everything. It's got intrigue. It's got revenge. It's got betrayal. It has just Alice. If it's a fantastic story, so hopefully you will enjoy it. Remember to write stuff down that's in yellow, and uh, again, you can pause it if I go too fast. But I'm going to try to fit this in. It's a long story. Normally, it takes me half an hour, 40 minutes to get through. So I'm going to try to cram this into around 20 or so minutes. And you will have the 6-point quiz at the end of this as well. Okay. So just a little bit of background before we get to the actual story of Yoritomo. Um, the emperors lose power. Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan, we learned that last week, ruled around 660 BC. Over the next 2,500 years, many of his relatives served as emperor, some with strength and ability, but some were not so able, especially in political leadership and military planning. We know that Jimmu was the first emperor, and his descendants to this day is the emperor of Japan. But just because Jimmu might have been a great leader doesn't mean that all of his descendants are going to be. And a lot of the emperors just kind of just gave up the power. They didn't have the desire to be the military leader. That was really the goal of the original emperors, was to be the military leader, the spiritual leader, the government leader. But over time, they kind of gave up the military power. And what that created was a void of leadership. Human nature is we have to have someone in leadership. And when there's a void of that, something or someone steps up to do that. What happened was, without the emperor being in charge, we had these families that step up. So that's what this is, families of warriors. So many emperors concern themselves only with the gentler matters of practicing their Buddhist religion, writing poetry, and appreciating items of peace and beauty. The more difficult matters of war and power were frequently left to other families. So again, the emperors said, I don't want to deal with the military stuff. You guys fight it out yourselves. I just want to sit here and read my poetry and think about how good life is and count my money. And so that's what they did. So they left up, these families would fight each other. So, for serving the emperor, these families were often rewarded with the rights to control and tax the peasant farmers and landowners. A few families achieved tremendous wealth and power, and to maintain their power, families frequently fought wars with each other. There was better land in other people's land, and so these families would fight for control. And obviously, the more land that you control, the more you can tax the peasants, the more money you're going to get, the richer you're going to get. And so this is a common theme throughout history. People love money, no matter what country you live in and what time it was. People love and want to have the most money, so they're going to get rid of try to collect as much land as they can. So these families fought each other. Okay. So, needing to be continuously ready to do battle, family members trained daily at the use of all types of weapons, knives, bows, spears, but especially the sword, the favorite weapon of these times. That's a question on your quiz you're going to take in a couple of minutes. The sword is the favorite weapon, preferred weapon of this time. The swordsmanship of the Japanese warriors was perhaps the best in the world. Now, the Japanese sword that I'm talking about, it's kind of a curved, not super curved like an Arabian sword, just got a slight arc. It's a single blade, single-edged sword. It's got just a slight arc to it. It's called a katana. And I've studied probably the greatest master of the katana ever to wield a sword. He actually had two of them. He kept them in his shell, and he'd whip them out the back of his shell. He and his brothers would fight Shredder, and oftentimes, he was kind of seen as the leader of his brothers, and he's one of the greatest. Well, he is the greatest katana sword fighter in the history of cartoons, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Hold on. Doing this on my phone. I hit the wrong button. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, we're going to see a term called samurai. You've probably heard that phrase, but this is one of the most misunderstood and often misused words in all of world history. So let me explain. These warriors came to be known as samurai, which means one who serves. The code of the samurai required that he always would be ready to serve his leader unquestioningly, even if it meant his own death. Two things here. One, samurai means one who serves. It does not mean fierce warrior. It doesn't mean anything about a warrior or a soldier. Samurai literally means one who serves, and that's what they are asked to do. The samurai families, this is going to become a culture of people, not a specific person. A samurai is a class of people, and they are the warriors of Japan. And they are asked to protect Japan, even if it means their own death. That's a theme we're going to see for the rest of the time, for the next several hundred years that we talk about Japanese history. Over the course of the next several lessons, we're going to see this concept where the samurai will fight to their own death. And we'll talk about that in a minute. There's a little bit of an edge there. Now, a good samurai would consider it quite honorable to die in battle at the request of his leader, but preferably not before chopping off the heads of a few enemy warriors. We're going to see that as a theme, that they would prefer to kill the heads, or I'm sorry, kill the heads, cut the heads off of the enemy, because you can sometimes recover from a chest wound or certainly other wounds, but no one has ever, to my knowledge, recovered from a head chopping off. So they would do that. All right, women samurai. Now, being samurai didn't mean simply one was a warrior, but rather it meant being a member of one of the powerful warring clans. This is a super important sentence. That's why it's all highlighted in yellow. You're going to write that down. Samurai does not mean warrior. To be a samurai, it means you're part of a warring class. Now, to keep this rated G, since this is a class of people, and you're born into it, just like we talked about with India and the caste system, and you learned last year in feudalism in Europe, you're born into a class, you stay in that class. You cannot move. So if you're born into a class, there has to be a daddy samurai and a mommy samurai, right? And that's as far as I'm going to go on that, but you have to understand, mommy and daddy samurai make a baby samurai. So there has to be women samurai. So that, again, it's not women warriors, it's women samurai. It's this class of people that develops now. And so there were women samurai, okay? But they didn't participate in battle. They were expected to serve their husbands and their family leader, taking their own lives if requested to do so, just like any samurai would. Occasionally, a woman of the royal family would become empress. Only rarely did a woman become a military leader of a warring clan. It was easier for a woman to become the empress of Japan solely than it was to become a military leader of a family, if that tells you how important and strong these families were. Okay, here's where the story starts. In your mind, picture like a battlefield, and there's fighting going on, right? Bows and arrows, swords, spears, all that stuff, okay? These two families are fighting. It's 1160, and the Taira family controlled much of the important land around Kyoto, home of the imperial family. The Tairas, by force, then, had the favor of the emperor. At this time, whoever controlled the land around the emperor's home, which is Kyoto, that's where the emperor lived, they basically controlled the emperor. He was kind of like a puppet to the family that controlled them. And so the most coveted land in all of Japan was the land around Kyoto, because they basically got to run Japan, because you got to tell the emperor what to do, because you controlled that land around that. And so right at this point, for a long time, the Taira family, by force, had the favor of the emperor. Okay, so everyone wants that job or that position. Now, their rivals was a family called the Minamoto family. They controlled lands farther from the emperor's home and greedily desired to take over the Taira's territory in order to force their influence on the emperor. Everyone wanted the land around the Kyoto to control the emperor. Now, the Minamotos and the Tairas were bitter enemies, and the Minamotos won an important battle, temporarily taking control of the Kyoto area, which was huge, because they were able to defeat them. Now, this emblazoned the Tairas to fight back even harder. They're not just going to go down without letting you know, oh, you won, okay. They're going to fight back, and they do. In fact, the Tairas battled back, crushing the Minamotos and later assassinating their leader. The leader's entire family was also to be executed. However, the leader's widow was so beautiful that the leader of the Taira family sought to make a deal with her. So here's the story. These two families have been bitterly fighting for years. The Minamotos finally defeat the Tairas, but the Tairas are so ticked off they come back and just rage against the Minamotos and kill him. And they grab Mr. Minamoto and they kill him publicly, which was what the custom was. They took his head off and they killed him. And what was also custom was they would kill his entire family, so that there would be no possible way for them to seek revenge on the family that took them over. So they kill Mr. Minamoto. They call it Mrs. Minamoto. They're about to take her life as well, and the lives of her sons. But Mr. Taira happens to see Mrs. Minamoto, and he's like, whoa, she's pretty cute, right? She's pretty. She's really pretty. History records that Mrs. Minamoto was absolutely beautiful. And so Mr. Tara notices this. And so he goes, let me make a deal with her. So he does. Here's the deal. If Lady Minamoto would agree to become the Terra leader's wife, he would not only allow her to live, but would also allow her sons to continue living. In order to avoid having them grow up and seek revenge against the Terras, however, they had to become monks and live their lives in the confines of separate monasteries, never to see each other again. So this is a killer story. Check this out. So you had these families that were fighting. They just killed the husband, and the enemy just kills the husband, and he's about to kill the wife. He's supposed to kill the wife and the kids, but she's so beautiful. He's like, whoa, back it up a minute here. I want you to be my wife because you're so pretty, which is shallow, by the way, right? There's more to women than just how they look, right? You know what I'm saying? Okay. But in this case, Mr. Tara, obviously pretty shallow. You're really pretty. I want to marry you. So, if you marry me, I will let you live and I'll let your boys live. I'm supposed to take your life, and at the same time, I'll take the lives of your boys. However, if you marry me, you live, your boys will live. Now, they'll never see each other again. You'll never see them again, but you'll know that they are alive. So this is obviously a ridiculously difficult decision for her. They just killed her husband. There's the sworn enemy of this family, but she hated the terrorists for the death of her husband. She agreed to the deal to save the lives of her sons. This is the ultimate sacrifice a mother could make. I hope these boys got her Mother's Day cards for the rest of their lives because this was the ultimate sacrifice. She agreed to marry her enemy to allow her sons to live. Now, the name of this lesson is called Yoritomo, so let's see why he's so important. The older son's name was Yoritomo. His younger brother was named Yoshitsune. They grew up with a hatred for the Tara family and a desire for revenge. Yoshitsune, at age 15, escaped from the monastery where he was held, and while in hiding, he trained daily to become a great samurai warrior. They were supposed to live as a peaceful Buddhist monk. That was not the case. He escaped after several years of being held there. He trained daily to become just an absolute amazing warrior, and he did. He became very powerful. Meanwhile, his older brother Yoritomo had been sent to another remote province, planned his revenge. Yoritomo began meeting with old Minamoto clan members and loyal friends of their fathers. The Terras also had many enemies. Yoritomo united all of these people to form a small army and set up his own government. There's a phrase that says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If person A and person B hate each other, they don't like each other, and they're warring, that's very common. If person A and person B both hate person C, person A and person B might go, you know what, we don't like each other at all, but we really don't like person C. So let's agree to put our differences aside. Let's go take care of person C first, and then we can go back and hate each other later on. So they do. The United States did that in World War II. We were not good buddies with the Soviet Union, Russia. We did not like them at all, but we had a more common enemy with Hitler and Germany. And so the United States and the Soviet Union agreed to put aside their differences and fight together. We're called the Allies. And we fought together in World War II, defeated Hitler in Germany, and then immediately after the war was over, went back to being bitter enemies again and started the Cold War, which lasted for the next 40, 50 years. And so we did the exact same thing. Another example would be probably way more important. No one likes the Patriots, right? The Patriots the Patriots. And so really, most people cheer for whoever is playing the Patriots. Years ago, when the Super Bowl was here in Indianapolis, it was the Patriots against the New York Giants. There were so many Giants fans around the country, not because they liked the Giants, just their more common enemy was the Patriots. And so they joined forces with other Giants fans and other, whatever. I mean, a lot of Colts fans were cheering for the Giants, partly because of Eli Manning, but also because of they were not the Patriots. Okay, so there you go. All right. Yoshitsune. So Yoritomo is the older brother. Let's talk about the little brother Yoshitsune. Young Yoshitsune had now joined with his older brother and had taken a role of military commander. Let me stop here. They were never supposed to see each other again. They both escaped their monasteries. They both trained to become fantastic, huge, awesome warriors, and they did. They reunited. Think about, again, here's my movie. These two brothers weren't supposed to see it. They reunite. Oh, the big hug, and let's go defend mom. So Yoshitsune proved to be an expert at battle strategy, and though frequently outnumbered, Yoshitsune led the Minamoto armies to several surprise victories over the Terra forces. So they raised up an army strong enough with all these, loyal clan people and enemies of the Terras, and they fought back, and they actually were really good. They were fighting with heart. They were fighting with passion, even though they're outnumbered, and even though they were all kind of a mixture. They really fought with passion, and they were able to defeat the Terra forces. So this final battle, pushed towards the sea by advancing Minamotos, the Terras took with them the emperor, whose name was Antoku, who was just a young boy, just a little kid. Antoku kept with him many of his important imperial belongings, and the final decisive battle took place at sea. A week ago, we talked about the rise of the emperor, Jimmu, and he had three important artifacts that he kept with him to prove his divine ancestry to the gods, his wisdom, and his strength. I know you know what those are because I taught them to you, even though I can't review them with you in person. Say them with me. They are the mirror, the sword, and the jewel, right? The mirror, the sword, and the jewel. Those are the three treasures that the emperor keeps with him. Though again outnumbered, Yoshitsune cleverly used the tides and currents to his advantage. The Minamoto victory caused such despair among the surviving Terra army that many of the samurai took their own lives by jumping into the water and drowning. So the Terra family was defeated, essentially. The Minamotos fought so strongly that they defeated the Terra family. And what we're going to see now as a trend in samurai culture is it's more honorable to die at your own hand in battle than it is at the end of the enemy. That's very opposite of what we teach as Americans, right? If you're a soldier, you die in battle, you're a hero. You don't give up. You fight to the very, very last. In samurai culture, if you are killed by an enemy, it's not a disgrace, but it's more honorable if you have the option to die at the hands of yourself than you are at the hands of the enemy. Okay, and so they did that. They jumped and drowned. The boy emperor also drowned during the fierce battle, and the famous mirror, sword, and jewel that I just mentioned a second ago, proof of the emperor's divine ancestry, were lost at sea. Yoshitsune sent divers to search for the priceless treasures, and eventually the mirror and the gem were recovered, but the sword was never found. This is the official story. The official history tells us that the sword was never found. There are some people who believe that the sword that I showed you a picture of last week is the actual sword that Jimmu carried with him. Some say it's a replica. Some say all three are replicas. Some say they're all three original. No one really knows. The official story is that the sword was gone and lost at sea forever, and that's what we're going to go with. But the sword was never found, according to the official documentation. So, the first shogun. This is kind of bringing the story all to a head. So, again, going back to the movie here in my mind, this long battle took place. The Terras are defeated. The Minamotos finally avenge their father. They avenge what happened to mom. And these two brothers unite. They find an emperor related to, they find a descendant related to Jimmu. They install him as emperor. And the first thing that he does as emperor is name Yoritomo the first shogun. So let me read this to you. The Minamotos now had complete military control of Japan, and Yoritomo, as the eldest son, was the supreme ruler. A new emperor from the imperial family was installed. This emperor named Yoritomo to be the first shogun, chief military ruler of all Japan. Remember, the emperors didn't want anything to do with the military leadership. And for a while, these families fought. Well, now all of Japan is united under the Minamoto family, and to prevent any future fighting, the emperor creates a new position called shogun, and it literally means chief military ruler. And that he names Yoritomo as the first military ruler or first shogun of Japan. And this is going to really have all the power in Japan. The emperor ultimately is in charge, but they're more of a figurehead. It's the shogun who has the real power. Now, if this were my movie, this would be a fantastic ending, right? You have the two brothers who avenge their dad, avenge what happened to mom. They rule together, right? Oh, it's great. Yoritomo's the first shogun. Thanks, little brother. You're great. However, that's not what happens, because this has to be a little bit more tragic, right? But this is what makes the story so to ensure himself complete and unthreatening power, Yoritomo forced his devoted younger brother Yoshitsune to commit suicide. I mentioned at the very beginning of this lesson that samurai served their leader even if it meant their own death. Well, Yoritomo felt that Yoshitsune could become a threat to him militarily later on, and Yoshitsune had a lot of followers. He's very popular. That Yoshitsune might try to overthrow his big brother and take over and become the second shogun of Japan. And Yoritomo didn't want that. And so he said, you know what? I'm your leader. I'm in charge. You need to take your own life. And he did. And that's just tragic. It's just, if this were a movie, people would be like, what? Right? Because that just, you wouldn't see that coming. It's like, oh my gosh, right? But story's not quite over. There's one final little story and one little final thing here. Before I flip to the next screen, we talked last week about legend versus reality. And sometimes stories get made up over time and to explain things. And, we know the history, but then legends or myths are created. So there's legend and there's fact here. So let me read this last little bit. The Ghost of Yoshitsune. Yoritomo ruled Japan efficiently until 1199. It is said that, while riding on his horse one day, Yoritomo confronted the ghost of Yoshitsune. In shock and terror, Yoritomo fell from his horse and died. So here's what history says. Yoritomo, first shogun of Japan, fell off his horse and died. He died from falling off his horse. Okay? Now, that's history. There's two sides to this. One side is the Yoritomo fans. How would one of the greatest warriors in Japanese history, one of the greatest swordsmen, one of the greatest horsemen in Japanese history, how could he die from falling off his horse? That just wouldn't happen. The only thing that could cause him to die is probably spooked his horse. The one thing that freaked Yoritomo out and haunted him was the fact that he made his little brother take his life. So the only thing that could have caused him to fall off his horse must have been the ghost of Yoshitsune. That's one side. The other side could be Yoshitsune fans who said, haha, Yoshitsune got the last laugh because his ghost came back, freaked out the horse, freaked out Yoritomo. In a sense, Yoshitsune caused his older brother to die as well. Again, those are myths and kind of fun stories. The truth is, Yoritomo fell from his horse and died. And now, whether or not the ghost part is true or not, we'll leave that up to, just our mind's imagination. Okay? Now, isn't that a killer story? I love that story. Not the death stuff part here, but just the intrigue of the whole thing, and it just makes it just a really, it's one of those true life stories that just, it's almost too good to be true, but it is. Okay, so that leads us to the end of this. Remember, you have a six question code, 6-question quiz. Man, I'm tired. 6-question quiz. The access code is right here, 2283. A lot of you still email me throughout the day, hey, what's the code to the quiz? I can tell that you either didn't watch this lesson or you weren't paying attention super well because it's always at the end here. So 2283, write that down so you remember when you take the quiz. It's 6 questions like always. They're all multiple choice or true false. You will have 2 attempts to take it. So whatever score you get the first time, take it again and get. You might want to write down the answers so you know not to do the same mistake twice. But hopefully you'll all get 6 out of 6s on those. And I'm recording those in Skyward, so get those in. And this will be technically due next Monday, so in a week. But I'll start entering it into Skyward probably later on today. All right? If you have any questions other than where to find the code, email me, and I'll be happy to help you as best I can. All right? Talk to you guys later.